Yesterday, Sayadaw explained on Jhana Samadhi that it can overcome the nirvana hindrances as well as overcoming the gross ones of the jhana factors. So this Jhana Samadhi can overcome hindrances and also gross jhana factors. And by this way, one accumulates samatha bhavana, one accumulates tranquility, meditation, wholesomeness. So by practicing samatha, by practicing tranquility, meditation, one can follow the path of abhaya, supernormal knowledge, and also one can use jhana as the foundation of Vipassana practice in order to attain magga phala jnana, path and fruition knowledge. So if one does not follow to practice Vipassana path in order to attain magga phala jnana, if one does not make use of his or her jhana in order to practice Vipassana, so if the person just attains jhana alone without Vipassana practice, and if the person dies having jhana in the time of near death, then the person can be reborn as a Brahma. So being reborn in the Brahma plane, this Brahma will have a very long lifespan. So among the 20 planes of Brahma, the lowest kind of the first jhana Brahma will live one-third of the incountable eon. So this is the lowest type of the Brahma, the lowest type among the 3 kinds of first jhana Brahma will live one-third of the uncountable eon. And the second lowest will live half of the uncountable eon, and the third of the 3 kinds of first jhana Brahma will live a lifespan of 1 uncountable eon. So even the lowest of the Brahma, they have a very long lifespan. And the highest Brahma lives a lifespan of 18,400 great eons. So today, Sayadaw will explain briefly on the Brahmas. So when we say asanchaya, rather than saying it's uncountable, it can be translated as very difficult to count. So if you add 140 knots behind 1, so there will be behind 1 you should add 140 zeros in order to get the how the asanchaya kappa, how the uncountable eon it takes place. So if you add 140 zeros to the number 1, you will get a number, and this number equals the asanchaya kappa. And these 4 asanchaya kappa, the 4 uncountable eons, make up one great eon. So one can imagine how long these asanchaya kappa and mahakappa are so long. And the lifespan of the Brahma doubles when the higher the Brahma, his or her lifespan doubles the one of the lower Brahma. So what Sayadaw meant to explain is that by accomplishing Jhana Samadhi, then one will be reborn in the Brahma plane, relevant to the jhana that the person practices. So in the text, it mentions that the lifespan of the Brahma is long, but till now Sayadaw has not found anywhere in the text why the Brahmas have a very long lifespan. So Sayadaw has been reading through some science, and from this science Sayadaw found some way to explain why the Brahmas have a long lifespan. So today Sayadaw will try to explain why the Brahmas have a long lifespan using this scientific knowledge. So before Sayadaw explains on how why the Brahmas have a long lifespan, first of all, let us look at the production of steel, the stainless steel that is pure from the impurities. So in order to produce the stainless steel, in the mine one has to dig the earth or the soil that has a lot of iron in it. So there will be lumps of soil containing a high percentage of iron. So these soil had to be purified. So this iron has to be purified from the impurities of soil, gravel, and so on. And after purifying, one gets raw iron. So in the iron, there is brittleness, fragileness in the iron. So the iron has to be heated to a very bright red heat in a furnace, and it has to go through a furnace to heat up. And also the iron is gone through a series of metal rollers squeezing the iron. So it has to go through this metal rollers called blooming mill or roughing mill and finishing mill, squeezing the iron. So the impurities will be expelled, and then the iron becomes steel. So this steel is combined with other substances such as carbon, and then the stainless steel is produced. So in the stainless steel, the brittleness or the fragileness is no more in the stainless steel. So if one does not shape or mold or reform one's mind, then the avijja and tanha, ignorance and craving, will follow throughout the existences. So avijja, ignorance, is not knowing the truth and knowing wrongly. Then if one does not shape his or her mind, the moha patala, or the layer of ignorance, will be very thick. So if one does not know the truth, one will take things as good. There will be craving, clinging. One will crave, one will have greed on pleasurable objects. So throughout the samsara, the avijja and tanha, ignorance and craving, has been strongly rooted throughout the samsara. So one should get rid of these ignorance and craving so that one will gain spiritual strength, spiritual stamina. If one cannot put necessary mental strength in the mind, and even if one puts necessary strength in the mind, if the strength is not as strong, then when one meets undesirable objects, there will be hatred, anger. So the person easily loves and hates. So love and hate can easily arise in the person if he, she does not form or shape his or her mind with samatha. So if one does not reform or mold one's mind with samatha, then the brittleness, fragility in the mind will not get any weaker. So the majority of the people, because they do not know the truth, they have wrong views. If one does not discern mind and matter distinctly, there will be wrong view of jiva atta, individual soul. Not knowing cause and effect, there will be wrong view of creator, creating, and also there will be fictitious cause view. And if the person does not know the impermanence, he, she will take things as permanent. If the person does not know that it is suffering, then he, she will take things as good and happy. And also, if one does not know that there is no self, he, she will think that it is self. So the mind is not matured. If the mind is not matured, the mind will not have spiritual stamina. So this kind of mind, which is not matured, can easily be ruined, can easily be destroyed. So just as tender fruits can easily be destroyed, in the same way, the mind that is not mature, the mind that is tender, can easily be ruined and destroyed. So the person who has such kind of mind, when he, she comes across pleasurable objects, his or her mind will become so much elated without any control. And if the person meets undesirable objects, there will be depression. The person will get depressed, discouraged. It shows that the mind does not have spiritual stamina. So if the person does not practice Satipatthana meditation, then there will be hindrances nirvana arising in the mind, so the mind does not have any spiritual stamina. So in the example, when one digs the earth, so the iron that is in the earth, it is brittle and fragile, and it can have scratches easily. So when the iron is gone through a series of processes in order to become the steel, finally when it becomes a steel, it will be shining, it will be durable. So in the same way, one has to practice Satipatthana meditation. If one does not practice Satipatthana meditation, then one will be having nirvana or hindrances, the nirvana that blocks, hinder, and obstruct the wholesomeness from arising, and the nirvana which pollutes the mind, and also weaken the knowledge, and also destruct the knowledge. So these nirvanas will be present in the mind if one does not practice Satipatthana meditation. If the person is accepting these nirvanas, so long as he/she is accepting these nirvanas, the mind will be brittle, fragile, and also the mind will be very quick to respond, and he/she easily love and hate without any control. So if one concentrates his or her mind on the object of meditation, when the mind becomes collected, calm and collected, then the mind will not be so quick to respond to opposite states. And in this way, when the mind becomes matured, there will be peace and tranquility in the mind. The mind will be calm, tranquil, peaceful. The mind cannot get agitated with raga, lust, or it is not easily agitated with dosa, anger. So when the mind is not agitated with raga or dosa, then the mind becomes peaceful, being free from quick responses, so that the mind will be strong, matured, and durable, so that it does not have much stain of the nirvana. So when the mind is quite free from the stains of nirvana, then the mind will be clean, strong, and durable. While having the opportunity in this life, if one does not strengthen the mind by practicing samatha vipassana, if one does not strengthen the mind with satipatthana practice to make the mind matured, then the mind will stay tender and inferior. So such kind of tender and inferior mind is called abhavita citta, undeveloped mind. So the person who has this kind of undeveloped mind, which is tender and inferior, even though the person will grow old, but the mind will stay tender and inferior. So if the person does not reform or shape or mold his or her mind with samatha or vipassana bhavana, then the mind will be left tender and inferior. Even though the person is 25 years old, if she does not reform or shape his or her mind with satipatthana practice, the mind will be left tender and inferior. Even though the person is 50 years or 70 years old, if she does not reshape or mold his or her mind with satipatthana practice, then the mind stays tender and inferior. So in life, there are a lot of social matters. So people are burdened with social matters, worldly matters, and as they are burdened with the worldly matters and their mind is not reformed, if the mind is not reformed with satipatthana practice, that's why they have problems such as tension, stress, and depression. So if one thinks of one's life, it is very suffering. And if the mind is not matured, then there will be quick response. So one should strengthen the mind so that the mind has this persistence to ups and downs of life. The mind will have resistance over the conditions. So it is very important that one needs to strengthen the mind. One needs to energize the mind by practicing satipatthana meditation. And those of you who are here, you have already understood that the mind should be strengthened and energized by practicing satipatthana meditation. So if the brittle metal is not heated in a furnace, but if it has to go through the rollers or blooming mill and so on, the iron will break up and it is of no use because it is not the systematic way to produce stainless steel. So the iron has to be heated up in the furnace and has to go through the rollers such as blooming mill, roughing mill, finishing mill, and so on, so that the impurities in the iron will be removed and stainless steel will be produced. So in the same way, one needs to remove the nirvana, hindrances, the impurities. So in order to remove the brittle state, the brittleness of these nirvana, hindrances, one needs to note the object of meditation with effort and with sustained mindfulness. And one also needs to exert ardent effort in order to burn away the nirvana hindrances. So by exerting ardent effort, atapa viriya, the mind will become supple, and also the mind should be go through the rollers of sati and samadhi, the rollers of mindfulness and concentration. So in this way, if the no-day mind goes through this process, then the brittleness of these nirvana will be removed. So Sayadaw will explain in detail when it gets to Vipassana Jhana. When explaining about Vipassana Jhana, Sayadaw has planned to explain about Atapa Viriya, ardent effort, and also Sati, Samadhi, and so on. So, in another way, the person who has accomplished samatha will be born as a Brahma, which has a very long lifespan. So Sayadaw had read about cryogenic in the encyclopedia. So in the destructive nuclear weapon, they use a very high temperature heat in order to have this nuclear weapon, which are very destructive. And also, on the opposite, there is the using of a very low temperature below the freezing point. So they create the very low temperature freezing point. So it is called cryogenic. So cryogenic is the study of things at a very low temperature, even below the freezing point. So today, Sayadaw will explain comparing with this cryogenic. So the food or items that can only last within hours or within just a few days. So if these food and items are refrigerated, then they will last for 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month, and so on. So the food and items that last just a short while, if they are refrigerated, will last longer. So using this example, you can think why they last longer if they are refrigerated. So according to the experiment, the temperature below the freezing point, such as minus 126.9 degrees Fahrenheit, is very low, and such kind of temperature takes place in the North Pole. So such kind of temperature is very cold for a human being, but the scientists who are experimenting take this temperature as still not cold. So this cryogenic is used in science, engineering, and also agriculture, and also in producing weapons. But Sayadaw will not explain them in detail. So below the freezing point, the molecules will not be moving. So the molecules will be static. The molecules will not move below the freezing point. So using this cryogenic to make the molecules stable, to stabilize the molecules, this cryogenic is used so that these things will last longer and they will be durable. So in the same way, a kind of cryogenic should be used in order to keep the mind calm and tranquil so that the nirvana hindrances as well as the gross jhanic factors such as vitakka and vichara will become calm and overcome. So one needs to compare with this example of cryogenic in order to suppress the hindrances. So if the cryogenic is applied to the mind, then one can suppress and tranquil the nirvana hindrances as well as refined form of defilement. So by accomplishing jhana, one can be reborn as a Brahma who has a very long lifespan, and one will be getting the knowledge associating with this jhana. But so long as one has not gained Vipassana samadhi, so long as one has not uprooted the kilesa defilement, when the jhana, when the momentum of jhana deteriorates, the person will be reborn in lower existences. The person will be reborn in the existences where the layers of kilesa defilement are very thick. So when the jhana, the momentum of jhana deteriorates, then the refined form of defilement will resurface, and when the defilement resurfaces, then the person can still indulge in misbehavior by body, speech, and mind. So it means that by attaining mundane kind of jhana, the person can become a Brahma who has a very long lifespan, but so long as the person has not uprooted the kilesa defilement, then she can still be reborn in lower existences. That's why Sayadaw is saying that mundane kind of jhana is not as good. But the Westerners, they are so much fascinated by samatha practice, but Sayadaw says it is better if they like Vipassana practice. Because Vipassana practice can overcome the latent or dormant form of defilement momentarily at the time of practice. And when Vipassana jnana, insight knowledge, develops stage by stage, and finally when the person attains Magga jnana, path knowledge, then the person has uprooted the gross form of defilement that can lead to lower existences. So Satipatthana meditation is the best way to uproot the latent or dormant defilement. So it is the Buddha who taught that Satipatthana practice is the best way to uproot the latent or dormant form of defilement. Buddha came into existence in order to uproot the kilesa defilement. Buddha came into existence in order to guide the beings the way to uproot these kilesa defilement. So when such best methods are available, if the person is still liking the samatha jhana, mundane kind of absorption, then the person is wasting the precious time. So Sayadaw would like to encourage those who are fascinating who are fascinated with Lokiya Jhana, mundane kind of absorption, Sayadaw is encouraging them to like the Vipassana method instead. The Vipassana method that has a guarantee. So the Vipassana method can guarantee that one will be developing Vipassana Samadhi, Magga Samadhi, Phala Samadhi. So Sayadaw will continue to explain next day.